At my older sister Brianna's engagement dinner in front of 80 guests, she raised her champagne glass and turned toward me with that smile she had perfected at age 10. The smile that meant I was about to be the punchline. To my little sister Christina, she said, "The one who always shows up broke, needy, and still hoping to matter. May you finally find your place in life before my wedding, so you don't embarrass the family again." My mother laughed, out loud, into her napkin. My father clinked his glass against hers. Her fiancé Connor chuckled nervously but joined in. 80 guests laughed. My cousins, my aunts, my uncles, people who had watched me grow up. I sat still for a moment. I counted my breaths. 3 in, 3 out. Then I stood up slowly and picked up my glass of water. To my big sister Brianna, I said. My voice was calm. The desperate one who booked her engagement dinner in a restaurant she did not know belonged to me. The laughter stopped. Forks paused midair. My mother's smile collapsed like a dropped cake. My father turned to me with a look I had never seen on his face before. And my sister, still holding her glass in the air, whispered, "What did you just say?" I smiled. "You heard me," I said. "Every word." My name is Christina Whitmore. I'm 23 years old. Before we jump into what happens next, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Now let's get back to the story. I grew up in a 4-bedroom house on a quiet street where my parents' biggest fear was always what the neighbors would think. My father sold insurance. My mother taught piano lessons 3 days a week. We were comfortable. Not rich, not poor. Just a middle-class family with one golden daughter and one invisible one. The golden one was Brianna. The invisible one was me. Brianna was 3 years older. Taller, prettier, according to my mother. Sharper, according to my father. She had her own birthday parties with every girl from her class. I had mine postponed or combined with hers. When she got into college, we threw a party. When I got into college on a full academic scholarship, my mother said, "That is wonderful, sweetheart. Make sure you remember who paid for your books." Nobody had paid for my books. I had paid for my own books. But I had learned a long time ago that in the Whitmore house, the truth was whatever Brianna felt like on a given day. That was my whole life. Until my grandparents stepped in. My grandfather's name was Alistair Whitmore. He was my father's father. He founded a hospitality company 40 years ago with one small restaurant and a rented espresso machine. By the time I was born, the Whitmore Hospitality Group owned 12 restaurants, 2 hotels, and a wedding venue on the edge of town. My grandmother, Evelyn, had run the books from their kitchen table for 38 of those years. My father hated working for them. He had refused to join the business. He had gone into insurance instead, because he wanted to build something of his own. My grandparents had been hurt. They had also been polite about it. They had written him a check for the house every Christmas, and my mother had cashed it every year without calling to say thank you. Brianna hated them. She said they smelled like old books and spoke too slowly and made her sit through boring dinners. I loved them. From the time I could walk, I spent every weekend at their place. My grandmother taught me chess. My grandfather walked me through the kitchens of his restaurants when they were closed, teaching about margins, costs, staff, and heart. A business is not numbers, quiet one, he used to say. A business is promises. Every menu is a promise. Every chair is a promise. He called me quiet one because I listened more than I spoke. He said that was rare. My parents noticed how much time I spent with my grandparents. They did not like it. "You're turning her into a stuck-up little thing," my mother said once, loud enough for my grandmother to hear, at a Christmas dinner when I was 11. "Filling her head with restaurants and business. She's a child. Let her be a child." My grandmother had set down her fork very quietly and said, "Gwendolyn, she is the brightest person at this table. I will feed her mind until she can feed her own." My mother never forgave her for that sentence. After that Christmas, my parents began to poison the relationship in small ways. They stopped driving me to the weekend visits. They scheduled birthday parties and dentist appointments on the days I was supposed to go. They told me stories at night in soft tea voices that my grandparents were favoring me because they were trying to turn me against the rest of the family. I did not believe it. Brianna did. She turned on our grandmas completely by the time she was 15. She called them old, cheap, embarrassing. She told her friends at school that we were rich because our grandparents were rich and she would inherit everything one day. My grandparents heard about that last one. Somehow. They always heard things. My grandmother took me aside at their house one Saturday afternoon. I was 14. "Christina," she said, "I need you to listen to me very carefully." My grandmother sat me down in their sunroom and held both of my hands. "Your grandfather and I love all of you," she said. "But we are not fools. We see the way your mother treats you. We see the way your sister talks about us. We know what your father chose when he walked away from this family business. We know what all of that means." I did not say anything. "When the time comes," she said, "we are going to leave the Whitmore Hospitality Group to you. All of it. Not because the others do not matter, but because only one person in this family understands what it means to us. And that person is you." I started to shake my head. "No," I said. "Give it to Dad, or split it, or give it to charity. I don't want to be the reason everyone hates me more." My grandmother smiled. "Quiet one," she said. "I need you to learn something now while you are young. Money does not create the hate. Money reveals the hate. It has always been there. It will always be there. What you do with the truth is what matters." My grandfather walked in then. He sat down across from me. He placed a small blue envelope on the coffee table. "In here," he said, "is a letter. Do not open it until after we are gone, and when you open it, do what it says. Exactly. No one else is to know." I nodded. My grandfather died when I was 16. He had a stroke in the kitchen of his very first restaurant, the one he had opened 40 years earlier with that rented espresso machine. He was testing a new soup. The staff said he smiled, said the broth needed more salt, and then sat down in the chair by the window. He did not get back up. My grandmother died 11 months later. The doctor said it was heart failure. My mother said it was a broken heart. For once, my mother was right. Both funerals were packed. Restaurant managers, hotel staff, city officials, people who had worked for my grandparents for 20, 30 years, people who cried openly. My mother used both funerals as opportunities to ask loudly and often when the will would be read. At my grandmother's reception, my father cornered me by the coffee table. "Listen, sweetheart," he said. "When the lawyer calls, you and I need to sit down together, as a family, so that we can make sure everything is shared fairly. You are the youngest. You would not know how any of that works. I have handled these things before." He had not handled anything like this before. "Okay, Dad," I said. I lied to my father for the first time that afternoon. I had already read the blue envelope, and I knew, word for word, what my grandparents wanted me to do. The letter in the blue envelope was 2 pages long. It was written in my grandmother's handwriting, my quiet one. "If you're reading this, your grandfather and I have both gone home. Do not be sad for long. We lived the way we wanted. We loved each other. We loved you. That is a full life. Now listen carefully. We have revised our will 4 times in the last 3 years. The final version is with our attorney, Mr. Julian Oakes. His number is on the back of this letter. He is expecting your call. We have left everything to you. The restaurants, the hotels, the venue, the land, the holdings, all of it. We have left you one other thing. Your parents' house, the one you live in. Your grandfather bought it as a gift for your father when he got married, and he never changed the deed. Your parents have always believed it was theirs. It has always been ours, and now it is yours. Here is what we ask of you. Do not tell anyone. Not your parents, not your sister, not your friends, not yet. You are 16. On your 18th birthday, call Mr. Oakes. Transfer everything into a trust in your name. Let the trust run quietly for as long as you need it to. One day, someone in your family will mistake your silence for weakness. That is the day you speak. We love you, quiet one. I did not say a word to my parents about the will. When the letter from Mr. Oakes arrived 2 weeks later, I intercepted the mail. When the lawyer called our house, I answered it first. When my father asked about the estate, I told him Mr. Oakes said we would hear more in a few months. A few months? My father said. That is ridiculous. Your grandmother's estate should have been clean. Simple. I know, Dad, I said. I don't understand it either. I was 16. I was learning how to lie. It came more easily than I wanted it to. When my 18th birthday came, I drove myself to Mr. Oakes's office on the afternoon of the party my parents had not thrown for me. Mr. Oakes was about 50. He had been my grandfather's attorney for 28 years. He poured me a cup of tea, and then he slid a stack of paperwork across the mahogany desk. "Your grandparents chose you," he said, "because they believed you could do this. Do you still want to do this?" I looked at the papers. 12 restaurants, 2 hotels, a wedding venue called the Rosewood Estate, $40 million of real estate holdings, a brokerage account worth another $11 million. "Yes," I said. "Sign here." I signed. Then I signed 30 more times. When I left his office, I owned a business empire. I drove home and heated up a frozen pizza and told my mother I had been at the library. For the next 5 years, I lived 2 lives. In the house on Linden Crescent, I was still the invisible daughter. I paid my own way through college. I worked part-time at a bookshop because it kept my parents from asking questions. I drove an old car. I wore clothes from the clearance rack. I rode the bus. My parents called me their broke little dreamer. My sister called me the charity case. My family mocked me at every holiday. I said nothing. In the other life, I met with Mr. Oakes once a week. I learned the business. I learned the books. I met every restaurant manager quietly, one at a time, always introduced as Alistair's granddaughter who is shadowing us this year. None of them knew I owned the company. Only Mr. Oakes and the company's chief operating officer, a woman named Maricela Vega, knew the truth. Maricela was my grandfather's hand-picked second in command. She had been running the daily operations for 11 years. When my grandfather died, she had stepped up without asking for more. When I signed the papers on my 18th birthday, she had flown across the country to meet me in Mr. Oakes's office and shake my hand. "Your grandfather told me to wait for you," she had said. "I've been waiting. I'll keep waiting until you're ready." By the time I was 23, I was ready. And that was the year Brianna announced her engagement. Brianna called a family meeting on a Sunday afternoon. I thought someone had died. She had not called a family meeting in her entire life. When I walked into my parents' living room, she was already sitting on the couch with Connor Ashford, her boyfriend of 18 months. Her left hand was extended across the armrest. A diamond the size of a small grape caught the afternoon light. My mother was already crying. My father was already pouring champagne. "We're engaged," Brianna said before I had even sat down. My mother screamed with joy. My father hugged Connor. I stood in the doorway and smiled and said the correct words. "Congratulations, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you." Brianna looked up at me. "We haven't picked a date yet," she said, "but we want it to be special, really special. Connor's family has a lot of expectations. We want to do it right." Connor came from old money. His parents owned a shipping firm 3 generations deep. His mother had already been profiled in 2 society magazines. "Whatever you need," my mother said. "Whatever you need, your father and I will make it happen." Brianna smiled. Then she looked at me. "Christina," she said, "I'd like you to be a bridesmaid, not maid of honor, obviously, but a bridesmaid, if you can afford the dress." My mother laughed. My father chuckled. I smiled. Of course. The wedding planning began the next week. I was not invited to any of it. Brianna and my mother went to bridal boutiques together. They toured venues together. They called Connor's mother, Mrs. Ashford, to coordinate colors and themes. They posted photos on social media of themselves laughing with champagne flutes under chandeliers. I found out about most of these outings from their posts. When I finally asked Brianna at a Sunday dinner where they had decided to hold the ceremony, she rolled her eyes. "Christina, you really don't need to worry about the details. It's our wedding. Just show up and do your part." "I'd like to know where the venue is," I said, "so I can plan my schedule." My mother sighed. She's so uptight about everything. "Fine, it's at the Rosewood Estate. Is that good enough?" I nearly dropped my fork. The Rosewood Estate. My grandfather's crown jewel. My wedding venue. I kept my face flat. "Oh," I said, "that sounds beautiful." "It's extremely expensive," my father said, pouring himself more wine. "Connor's family is paying for most of it. We're covering some of the smaller costs. Everyone is pitching in what they can. We actually wanted to talk to you about that." "About what?" "Your contribution," my mother said. I set down my fork. "My contribution?" "30,000, Brianna said without looking up from her phone. Everyone is doing their part. $30,000, I repeated. For the flowers, my mother said, as if that explained anything. And the photographer, and a few other things. Connor's family is covering the venue and the dinner. We are covering the dress and the rehearsal. You will cover the rest. I don't have $30,000, I said. My father laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Sweetheart, he said, you are 23 years old. You have had a steady little job. You have been living here for free. You have had no real expenses. You must have saved something. I have savings for my future, I said. For an apartment, for school. My sister looked up from her phone for the first time. Christina, she said, this is my wedding. This is the most important day of my life, and you are seriously trying to tell me you cannot help your family with one single expense? I said I don't have $30,000. Then get a loan, my mother said, or sell something, or figure it out. That is what adults do, Christina. That is what responsible people do. Your sister has worked so hard for this moment. The least you can do as her sister is show up. I looked around the table. At the three faces I had known my entire life, the three faces that had laughed at me, excluded me, and called me broke for 23 years. They genuinely believed I would pay. I'll try, I said softly. Good girl, my father said. I called Maricela Vega the next morning. We met at a coffee shop 3 towns over, where we always met. She was 51, silver-haired, with the kind of calm that only came from running 12 restaurants without ever raising her voice. I told her everything. The engagement, the venue, the 30,000, the toast pattern, the years of mockery. Maricela listened the way she always listened, hands folded, eyes steady. When I finished, she said, Christina, your grandfather left you a question in that blue envelope. Do you remember it? Someone will one day mistake my silence for weakness, I said. That is the day I speak. Yes. Is that day now? Maricela tilted her head. I cannot make that decision for you. But I can tell you this. Your sister booked the Rosewood estate 6 weeks ago without knowing who owns it. She is now planning her engagement dinner at one of our restaurants, the Ember Room, next Saturday. Also without knowing. And your father has been complaining for 12 years that your grandfather never left him anything. He lives in a house he does not own. I looked at her. What are you saying? I am saying, your family is walking into a room you built. The only question is whether you turn on the lights. I stirred my coffee for a long moment. Turn them on, I said. The engagement dinner was booked for Saturday evening at the Ember Room. 80 guests, 5-course tasting menu, open bar, private dining wing. The bill was $22,000. Connor's family had paid the deposit. My parents had promised to cover the rest. What they did not know was that the general manager of the Ember Room, a man named Xavier Delacroix, had worked for my grandfather for 18 years. He had run that restaurant since before I was born. He was one of maybe 11 people in the entire company who knew my name. I called Xavier on Thursday. The party on Saturday night, I said. The Whitmore engagement. I will be there. Miss Whitmore, he said, of course. Xavier, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest. Always. Has my father ever come into the restaurant? Many times, miss. Always as a guest of someone else. He has brought clients. He has brought your mother. He has brought your sister. He has always name-dropped your grandfather to get upgrades. Has he ever paid full price? Xavier hesitated. No, miss. Your grandfather left a standing instruction. Family gets 30% off. Your father always uses it. I have personally waived over $60,000 for him over the years. I closed my eyes. Xavier, I said, the standing instruction ends on Saturday night, effective immediately, and I will be at that dinner. I want you to treat me like any other guest, until I stand up. And then you do your job. I arrived at the Ember Room on Saturday at 6:45. I wore a plain black dress, nothing expensive, nothing designer, just the kind of dress a broke little sister would wear to an event where she was barely wanted. My mother spotted me from across the room and sighed. Christina, really? For your sister's engagement? It's clean, I said. Barely, she said. My father had already been drinking. He clapped me on the shoulder. There she is, the bookshop girl. Did you bring the check? What check, Dad? The $30,000. Your mother said you promised. I smiled. We can talk about it later, Dad. He laughed and walked away. Brianna was holding court in the center of the room. Connor was beside her. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Ashford, stood stiffly with champagne flutes. They had a faint air of people who had already decided our family was below them. Brianna had not noticed yet. I took my seat near the end of the long table, almost at the children's side. My mother had placed me there on purpose. Throughout the first 2 courses, Brianna toasted herself 3 times. Each time, my parents raised their glasses and cheered. By the 3rd course, she was ready for her signature moment. She tapped her glass with a dessert fork and stood. The room hushed. She smiled her cruel smile. Then she turned it on me. "I want to take a moment," Brianna said, lifting her glass, "to thank the family members who have shown up for me tonight, especially the ones who made the effort, which brings me to my dear little sister, Christina." My mother giggled into her napkin. My father was already chuckling. "To my little sister, Christina," Brianna said, "the one who always shows up broke, needy, and still hoping to matter. May you finally find your place in life before my wedding so you don't embarrass the family again." The laughter rolled across the room. Mrs. Ashford did not laugh. I noticed that. Neither did Connor. I stood up slowly. I picked up my glass of water. I did not rush. The laughter died down as people noticed I was standing. "To my big sister Brianna," I said. My voice was soft. Every syllable was clean. The desperate one who booked her engagement dinner in a restaurant she did not know belonged to me. The laughter stopped. For 3 seconds, no one said anything. Then Brianna laughed. A single, sharp, confused laugh. "What are you talking about?" she said. I turned my head slightly. At the edge of the room, Xavier Delacroix stepped forward. He walked calmly to my side. He placed his hand on the back of my chair. "Miss Whitmore," he said, loud enough for the nearest 10 tables to hear. "Is there a problem with the service this evening?" My mother's face began to crack. My father set down his glass. Brianna stared. "No problem, Xavier," I said. "Everything is excellent." Connor's mother, Mrs. Ashford, was the first to speak. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "Christina, did the manager just call you Miss Whitmore as if you own this restaurant?" I turned to her. "I own this restaurant, Mrs. Ashford, and the 11 others in the Whitmore Hospitality Group, and the 2 hotels on the north side of the city, and the Rosewood Estate, where my sister has booked her wedding." Silence. Real silence. The kind you can hear the ice melting in. Brianna stood frozen with her champagne flute still raised halfway. Her smile had died somewhere around the word hotels. My mother made a small, strangled sound, like a kettle about to scream. "That is not true," my father said finally. His voice was low, dangerous. "Christina, sit down. You are embarrassing yourself." "Dad," I said, "I have been preparing this answer for 5 years. "Enough," my mother hissed. "Enough. Sit down." I turned to Mrs. Ashford. "I apologize that this moment had to happen at your son's engagement dinner. At Seth, my grandparents raised me to behave better than this. My family, unfortunately, did not." Mrs. Ashford was watching me with an expression I could not quite read. It was not sympathy. It was recalculation. She was a woman who ran a shipping firm. She knew the sound of a reveal. Connor turned to Brianna. "You booked this dinner here," he said, "because you said it would look good for us in front of my parents. You told them we had family connections here. Did you know?" Brianna did not answer. "I did not know," Brianna finally whispered. "How would I know?" "That is exactly the point," I said. My father stood up. "Christina, whatever game you are playing, this ends now. You are making up a story. You have always been a dreamer. Your grandfather was a nice old man who ran some restaurants, but everyone knows he sold the business years before he died." Xavier cleared his throat. "I'm sorry to interject," he said, "but Mr. Whitmore III never sold the business. I worked for him personally for 18 years. The Whitmore Hospitality Group has been privately held since its founding. Ownership transferred upon his passing, according to his will, to his granddaughter, Miss Christina Whitmore. That transfer was finalized when Miss Whitmore turned 18, 5 years ago." My father went pale. "You are lying," my mother said. "I can provide documentation," Xavier said. "It is a matter of corporate record, and I do not lie, Mrs. Whitmore, in my own dining room." Connor's mother turned to her husband. They shared a look. The kind of look married couples share when they are rapidly updating their opinion of someone. "Christina, dear," Mrs. Ashford said, "I believe you. Please continue." "There isn't much more," I said. I just wanted everyone here to know that the toast my sister made a minute ago was made in a restaurant I own, at a table I comped, because I did not want anyone stuck with the bill, on a night when my family demanded I contribute $30,000 to a wedding at a venue that also belongs to me. Connor set down his glass. He did not pick it back up. The engagement dinner did not recover. Guests ate quietly. Then many of them made polite excuses and left. Connor's parents left within 15 minutes. Mrs. Ashford stopped by my seat on her way out. "Miss Whitmore?" she said quietly. "My husband would very much like to have coffee with you next week. He has a number of interests in hospitality himself. Would that be possible?" "Of course," I said. She smiled. The first warm smile I had gotten all evening. Then she left. Connor lingered. He did not sit back down next to Brianna. He stood awkwardly in the aisle between tables. "Christina," he said finally, "I had no idea." "I believe you," I said. "Brianna kept saying your grandparents left everyone a little something, that the real money was her dad's side, that you were struggling." "She lied, Connor." He looked at Brianna, who was crying silently at the end of the table. "I need some air," he said. He walked out. Brianna tried to follow him. My mother stopped her. They began hissing at each other. My father dropped into his chair and stared at the tablecloth. I finished my water. I stood up. I walked over to Xavier. "Comp the table," I said. "Everything. The Ashfords paid the deposit. Refund them in the morning." "Yes, Miss Whitmore." "And Xavier?" "Yes. Thank you. Grandpa was right about you." I walked out of my own restaurant. The first call came at 2:14 in the morning. It was my mother. "Christina, I do not know what you have been told. I do not know who has poisoned you against this family. But we are going to talk. Tomorrow. As a family. And we are going to straighten this out. Your grandmother was a manipulative woman, and whatever she led you to believe about any of this is not real. Call me." I did not call. The second call came at 3 in the morning. My father. "Christina, I am your father. I have been your father for 23 years. Do you hear me? I fed you. I put a roof over your head. I do not care what piece of paper some lawyer has in some office. This family stays together. I will not be cut out of my own father's business by a teenage prank. Call me." I did not call. The third call came at 5 in the morning. Brianna. She did not speak for the first 30 seconds. I could only hear her crying. Then she said, "Connor ended the engagement. Just now. He said his parents are embarrassed. He said I lied to him from the start. He said he cannot trust me. Christina, please call him. Please tell him it was a misunderstanding. I will do anything. I will apologize in front of the whole family. Just please." I listened to the voicemail twice. I deleted it. On Monday morning, I drove to my parents' house, or rather, to my house. It was the first time I had ever walked through that front door knowing, fully and out loud, that the title was in my name. My mother opened the door. Her hair was not done. Her eyes were red. My father was behind her, already holding a glass of something. Come in, my mother said, suddenly warm. "Sit down. Let us talk like adults." I did not sit down. I stood in the foyer. Mr. Julian Oakes was in his car outside. He had come with me. "I'm not staying," I said. "I came to give you this." I handed my mother a sealed envelope. She opened it. I watched her read. Her face did 3 things in the space of 10 seconds. It went white. Then it went red. Then it went still, the way a bowl of water goes still right before it freezes. "This is a lie," she whispered. "It is not." "Harold," she said. "Harold, read this." My father took the paper. He read it once. He read it again. "This house," he said, "is in your name. It has always been in my name. Grandpa bought it for you as a wedding gift, but he never changed the deed. It went to me with the rest of the estate." "You are lying." "I am not lying, Dad. Mr. Oakes is outside. He has the original purchase documents from 1979. My mother sat down on the bench by the door. "What do you want?" my father said. He did not ask it bitterly. He asked it like a man negotiating with his own child for shelter. "Dad," I said, "I am not throwing you out. I am not that person. I promised Grandma I would not be that person." My mother looked up hopefully. "But," I said, "there are going to be changes, effective immediately." "What changes?" my father said. I opened my own folder. 1. You will begin paying rent on this house, $2,200 per month. That is below the market rate. Mr. Oakes has already drafted the lease. If you cannot pay, we will help you downsize. Rent, my father said flatly. Rent on my own house. It is not your house, Dad. It has never been your house. 2, I continued. The family discount you have been using at Whitmore restaurants is revoked, effective last Saturday. My mother made a small sound. 3. The $30,000 you demanded for the wedding is no longer required. The wedding venue will honor the booking at the contracted rate, but payment is now between Brianna and Connor's family. I will not be attending. You can't do this, my mother whispered. You can't. Mom, I said gently, I am not doing anything. I am just no longer paying the bill for how this family treats me. I turned to leave. Christina, wait, my father called. I did not wait. Brianna came to see me 3 days later. Not at my parents' house, she came to my office. The real one, in the tower downtown. She had called ahead for the first time in her life. Maricela had put her on the calendar for 15 minutes. When she walked in, she looked smaller than I had ever seen her. Connor really called it off, she said, before she even sat down. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? I thought about it. I am sorry he got hurt. I am not sorry the truth came out. She sat down slowly. She looked around at the office, the wall of awards behind me, the view over the river, the nameplate on the desk. How long have you been doing all of this? 5 years. And you never told me. You never asked, Brianna. Not once. Not in 5 years. You assumed. Everyone assumed. You all decided I was the broke one, and you never checked. She started to cry. I'm sorry, she said. I am so sorry. I let her cry. After a long time, she said, Is there any way to fix this? Between you and me? Yes, I took a breath. Maybe, but not this year. Maybe not next year. I need to see you become a person who does not mock people who cannot fight back. When I see that person, we can talk. She nodded. She wiped her eyes. She left. I did not cry after she did. Over the following 6 months, my life became busier and quieter at the same time. I officially stepped into the public chairman seat of the Whitmore Hospitality Group. Maricela ran operations. I ran strategy. Mr. Oakes handled the legal. We opened 2 new restaurants in a neighboring state. I partnered with Mr. Ashford, Connor's father, on a hospitality venture that was genuinely exciting. He became unexpectedly a friend. He said his wife adored me. My parents moved out of the house on Linden Crescent 6 weeks after our conversation. My father could not swallow paying rent to his own daughter. He and my mother bought a small condo on the other side of town. My father took early retirement. My mother stopped teaching piano. Neither of them has invited me to dinner since. I sold the house on Linden Crescent for $620,000. I put the money into a scholarship fund in my grandparents' names. The Alastair and Evelyn Whitmore Scholarship. It gives 5 full rides a year to first-generation college St. Eudens who love hospitality. Brianna called once a month at first, then every other month. She took a job at a coffee shop. She lived in a small apartment by herself. She and Connor never got back together. She kept calling, and I kept picking up, slowly, briefly, one short conversation at a time. She was trying. For the first time in her life, she was trying. I did not owe her the reconciliation, but I was willing to watch her earn it. Almost a year after the engagement dinner, on a quiet Thursday evening, I drove past the Ember Room on my way home from the office. The sign still glowed warm and amber over the front door, my grandfather's sign. I slowed the car. I looked at it for a long time. I thought about the 16-year-old girl my grandmother had sat down in her sunroom and trusted with an entire empire. I thought about my grandfather handing me that blue envelope and telling me to wait. I thought about every Christmas I had sat quietly while my sister was celebrated, every birthday party I had skipped, every loan my father had demanded, every sigh my mother had made when I walked into a room. I thought about Brianna raising her glass that Saturday night and how my parents had laughed, and I thought about my own voice answering her. Soft, clean, unshakable. The phone buzzed on the passenger seat. My father, his 29th call since the dinner. I did not pick up. Here's what I have learned, watching my family fall apart because they pushed the one person they thought they could keep pushing. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a receipt. Silence is every moment you swallowed, every laugh you pretended to smile through, every insult you filed away, carefully, in a drawer no one else knew existed. And one day, when someone mistakes that silence for permission, you open the drawer. you read the receipt, and you hand them the bill. If this story spoke to you, add your voice in the comments. Whether you've risen from ashes or are still rebuilding, you're part of this family now. Subscribe, like, and stay close. The next story is coming.